psychologist on staff here at Counseling and Mental Health Services, and I'm going to do a little presentation for you about mindfulness and origami. One way of relaxing, since we're all pretty stressed at this point, is to pick up a simple mindful activity, and so I'm going to demonstrate some origami for you, all right? But first, mindfulness. It's the practice of purposefully being aware of the present moment that we're in, with no judgment, no expectations. And it doesn't mean that we stop feeling or thinking, it just means that we float above those thoughts and feelings for a little while as they just pass around us. Origami, it's an ancient art of folding paper into a representational or geometric forms, and it can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be, which makes it perfect for practicing mindfulness. So let me show you some models that I've made before, and we'll start with the geometric models. This right here is a 6-piece puzzle. Each piece is exactly the same, and they all start with one square, and it's kind of a pain to put back together, so I'm really glad I just took that apart. This is also one square, made very differently from the last, and it's made by creating a series of parallel lines in one direction, turning it 90 degrees, and then doing the same in the other direction, and then pinching it in a specific way to make whatever form that you would like to make. That's kind of neat. Neither one of these is what we're going to start with today, though. Okay, some more representational forms. This is one that took forever to make. It's also from a square of paper. It's actually 2 sheets of tissue paper that I glued together flat, and that gives it some good stretch. This is a model by an artist, Satoshi Kamiya, and it's one that I will probably never make again because it took hours. You may or may not recognize this figure, but it's from a really old movie series, and one of my favorite models, and one of the ones that people request the most. So as you can see, it varies quite a bit in complexity. Today we're going to do something quite a bit simpler, and you can do this with any printer paper or sticky notes or lined paper. But what you'll want to start out with is a square. And we get a square first by lining this edge with this edge right here. And this doesn't need to be fast. In fact, it's better if it's not. Slow usually means precise, and slow also usually means calm. That's kind of the goal right now, isn't it? So if you aligned these 2 sides together well, then you've marked out exactly where you'll have a square. And you just need to remove this piece of paper. If you have scissors, that's perfect. If not, have to use this old trick of getting a clean tear. By dragging your nail along the crease a few times in one direction, reversing that fold, and doing that again. Some people that I've met who do origami, at this point will lick that edge but that's gross. And probably not all that sanitary, especially with everything going around. I prefer to make a little tear on one end and a little tear on the other. It's okay if you have that little thing there. And then carefully pull them apart. Now, since I made those creases extra strong, it tears pretty cleanly. And this is what you get. So, the model that I'm going to do with you today is a heart. And I like this one for various reasons. I actually will do this with some of my clients, and sometimes I'll do this in presentations to demonstrate some parallels between origami and self-esteem and self-care. I said you don't have to worry about this little piece, but I'm just gonna tear it off anyway. So, what we have here is a square with one crease connecting these two opposite points and one crease connecting those two opposite points. So you have two perpendicular creases. The next thing that we're going to do is take this point, place it right where those two lines meet in the center, and put a little pressure there. And you can drag your fingers down and make a brand new crease here. So essentially what we've done is we've divided this half in half. If you turn the paper and repeat that step, placing that corner in the center, dragging your fingers down. Now we've divided it into quarters. Now that those 2 points are in, we'll fold it back along one of those first 2 creases. So if you look closely, you may be able to see through the paper to the lines underneath, those little hidden flaps of paper. What we're going to do next is fold this entire thing in half just to strengthen this little crease. And the way to do that is to take this little point and place it directly on the opposite point. And then pull your hand along, forming that crease, and then strengthening that crease with your nail. Once you open it back up, you should be able to see that middle crease that we made. What we want to do now is to lay this edge right along that line, and we're going to make a crease from this point all the way up to here. When I do that, this is what it looks like. You can probably see very well the little extra wrinkles, the little extra fuzz on the paper. This is not going to be a museum quality piece, but it doesn't really have to be. Okay. Now we're going to repeat that step with this point and with this edge. And you can see that these 2 points don't necessarily touch exactly. There's a little gap right here. But again, that doesn't really matter. The next thing we're going to do And after these two little parts, you'll be able to tell what the model already looks like. You'll be able to actually see the heart. We're going to flip this over and fold one of these 2 points to one of the outer points. Repeat on the opposite side. And now it is essentially a heart. I would bet that as I've gone along, and for those of you who have followed along with me, that you might be a little frustrated at some point in this process. And since we're being mindful, we want to be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with it. It might add to your stress, but that doesn't mean it's wrong to feel stressed or to feel frustrated. But if you're frustrated, it means you have some expectations about how this will turn out. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if you have those expectations, and if they are higher than they need to be, then we're not exactly relaxing, are we? So let yourself be okay with however perfect or imperfect this may be. I personally think that we can make it look a little bit more like a heart. In order to do that, you can pick a variety of ways. On this side, I'll show you one of the little more complex ways. We'll unfold that point, and if you look at the edge, you'll see that there are actually 2 layers here. And we're going to open up those layers and push that point inside, and then close it back up. Something else that you could do is take this point and fold it over to the middle here, fold it across to the middle there, and then tuck it in, so that way it doesn't come open quite as easily. Either way works. But I think I'm gonna undo this one and make it just like the opposite end. So here is where, for me, it's most obvious how this relates to self-esteem, self-image, and self-care. Because this is not really a heart. It's just maybe an L, maybe it's a square with a quarter of it missing, but it definitely doesn't look very organic. And we can change that a little bit. If we think of this as the front and this as the back, then one thing that we can do is we can fold these points back just a little bit, and maybe fold that corner in a little bit. And then if we flip it back over, well, this side looks a little bit more like a heart than that one does. So we'll make those 2 folds on this other side as well. And there, that's better. But the longer you look at it, the more you realize you had 2 points on this side, and now you have 4. Well, we can fix that, right? Fold this point back, and this point back. Now it kind of hurts a little bit. There's a lot of layers that we're folding. Fold point back. Oh, that's extra hard. And there, that looks a little more rounded than that side. So I'll repeat it over here. There. But that's not really perfect either. Because if you really think about it, all we've done is we've doubled the number of points every time we've tried to fix it. This isn't a curve. There are angles and straight lines and points all over. So you may tell yourself, I can fix that. And maybe you want to, maybe you can, maybe you have the time, but at some point, you'll have to learn that good enough is good enough. Anyone looking at this would recognize it for what it was, and they may even be impressed. As simple as this model is, but you, since you were here the entire time, you are the one doing all of the work, you can see the flaws better than anyone else. And so they seem so big, but they're not. This is good enough, and so are you.